I've basically viewed Donald Trump as a guy who couldn't look at a woman and see an equal.
VP candidate Tim Kaine campaigns in South Florida. We get to sit down with him exclusively.
Amendment 1 would benefit the incumbent fossil fuel companies here in Florida by making it harder for homeowners to go solar.
Former VP Al Gore in South Florida adds his opposition to the proposed solar amendment. We take a closer look at why.
Totally and absolutely false.
Donald Trump categorically denies groping and kissing women without their permission. We will take that to the roundtable.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. So glad to have you with us today. 24 days till Election Day, and voting already underway by mail, and we will devote the next hour to the races.
We are going to begin this morning with a race not for the White House, well, for the vice presidential candidates for the White House and the running mates.
Republican vice presidential candidate Mike Pence made a swing through Miami on Friday night, appearing at a big Republican Party banquet. Through this week's barrage of allegations by women against Donald Trump, Pence is standing by his man.
And Democrat Tim Kaine is standing by Hillary Clinton. I am with her is his mantra. Kaine made a campaign appearance Saturday in Miami's Liberty City neighborhood, speaking at a voter registration rally at a branch of Miami-Dade College. That's where I was able to sit down with Senator Kaine and ask him some fundamental questions about this very strange campaign. Senator Kaine, great to be able to speak with you.
Thanks, good to be back.
Senator, we just learned today the federal budget deficit for the fiscal year that just ended was $587 billion. That's 34% more than the previous year. For every dollar the government spends, 15 cents is borrowed. What will you and Secretary Clinton do if you're elected to sort of get our financial house in order?
Well, first, we care deeply about this. I'm on the Budget Committee in the Senate, and having been a governor, these issues are very important. And that's why the plans that we've put out, and you can check them out on hillaryclinton.com, we've really focused on, we're going to pay for the plans that we've put out. So the proposals that we're making about education and infrastructure investments, for example, are largely paid for. That's not the case on the other side. We recognize that the deficit is serious and that we have to deal with it, but the best way to deal with it is make investments in the economy and pay for those investments, and then let economic growth help you deal with the deficit, and that's what we're going to do. All
right. Senator, we are having this conversation in Liberty City, which is the epicenter of gun violence in South Florida, in Miami. An average of 30 children and teenagers are shot to death every year, have been for the last 10 years. What would you do to bring down, to reduce this epidemic of gun violence?
It is a subject that's very personal to me. I was the mayor of Richmond, and when I got elected to city council, we had the second highest homicide rate in the United States. And the neighborhoods that were most at risk were minority neighborhoods, and we had to work with communities to bring down gun violence. We did it through a couple of different strategies. First, community policing, continuing to build tighter and tighter bonds between our police and the communities they serve. And when you do that, you not only build better trust and relationships, you make it more likely that folks in the community will report a crime if they see one, be a witness to something if they need to be, and that builds bonds, and it actually makes communities safer, both for residents and police. And the second thing we really need to do is we need to put meaningful rules in place about guns, about
universal background checks.
That's the one that I think is the easy one. And when I say easy, I mean it's supported overwhelmingly by Democrats, Republicans, gun owners, NRA members. The only way to keep, in a fail-safe way to keep guns out of the hands of people who are legally prohibited from having them is to have background record check. We learned that through the tragedy of the shooting at Virginia Tech, where
you were there.
Where the student who shot all these people, he was not legally allowed to have a gun, but a weakness in the background record check system allowed him to purchase one.
Right, just like the fellow who shot the people in North Charleston somehow got through the background check.
Right.
Senator, you were chosen at least in part because puede hablar español perfectamente.
No perfectamente.
No, perfectamente. No escucho. I don't hear you speaking a lot of Spanish. Is that because you and Secretary Clinton believe the Hispanic vote is all wrapped up?
Actually, I do a lot of Spanish speaking. I probably in a normal week, do 10 or 15 interviews in Spanish with Spanish language media, TV, radio, and newspaper. So I am doing a lot of it. And then in rallies, you know, if I'm doing a rally, it kind of depends on if I think the audience has a lot of Spanish speakers, then I will do a lot of Spanish speaking, and I just kind of do that impromptu. But that's something that's probably been in some ways one of the most fun aspects of the campaign thus far is the Spanish language media I've been able to do. When you can go on Despierta America aquí, and you have more people watching than the Today Show, Good Morning America, and CBS Morning News combined, wow. And then you can toca la harmonica también con la gente. I was playing the harmonica there badly, but enthusiastically. And it's really fun.
Yeah. Senator, I have to ask you, as a father, as a husband, as a man, when you heard this tape from the early October from 2005 with Donald Trump on the bus, what was your personal reaction?
It's like sick to my stomach. And I've been telling people, it's shocking. What's in there is shocking, and yet it's also not surprising, because I've basically viewed Donald Trump as a guy who couldn't look at a woman and see an equal since I got into this campaign. I just feel like that there's part of the jigsaw puzzle missing in him. He cannot look at a woman and see an equal, and that's who I thought he is. When this came out, I was very shocked at it, and then I'm offended as a man that he says, well, this is just locker room talk. This is just what men do. That ain't what men do. That's not what strong men do. And for him to try to just fob it off as something, oh, don't worry about it, that made me mad too.
And now the 5 or 6 women who have come forward since the debate, the last debate, where he said he didn't grope any woman or kiss them without consent, do you think these women are credible?
The pattern of it is just so consistent, and the women who are coming forward, or I mean Florida or New York or Washington State, from all over the country, and the pattern is very consistent. I think I had the reaction that a lot of people had when we heard Donald Trump on that stage to Anderson Cooper's persistent question. He didn't answer it, wouldn't answer it, but finally said, no, I never did those things. I think most people looked at him and said, well, let's just start your stopwatch, because there's going to be people coming out and saying you did exactly what you described. So I think most people hear Donald now claiming he didn't, and I don't think he's believable.
I have to ask you, as you know, President Obama just on Friday issued a policy directive that makes it much easier to trade and travel with Cuba. But in the 14, 18 months since the policy changed, the Castro government has been more repressive than ever. Human rights abuses have just gone on and on and on. Are we giving up too much and getting nothing in return?
Well, I don't think the Cuban people are yet getting what they should, and I think we have to keep the pressure on human rights issues. And what I've always said is I support the president very strongly in this moving toward a more normal relationship with Cuba, because normal relations is not a good housekeeping seal of approval. It's just a channel for dialogue and a channel for influence and leverage that you didn't have before. We now have more normal relations, and we have to use that channel to put pressure on for human rights advances in Cuba. And I know Hillary feels the same way.
All right. And finally, I need to ask you, I have so many friends who have simply said, I should be excited about voting for president in this election cycle. I'm depressed about it. What do you say to those people?
Well, I'm excited about it because, look, this is a history-making election. As you know, we haven't had a woman president ever. And the nation does our best work, I think, when we're knocking down barriers and doing things for the first time. That excites me. It excites me to have in Hillary somebody who I really understand. We're both Midwestern kids. We both grew up in small business families. We both grew up in Republican families. We both grew up in families that were very rooted in church experience. I really understand where she's coming from. And she is very much a values-based leader. And she's had a track record her whole life of kind of measuring her own effort by how does it affect women and families and children. We've never had a president who has had a consistent track record of, I'm really focused on the success of families and kids. And I think that's a great barometer for how society will do, and that will be something new in the White House we've never had before.
And these WikiLeaks of the hacked emails, is that Russia? Do you think that, in fact, they are involved here?
Oh, yeah. You got to be careful about it, so I have withheld judgment, but when the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, and the FBI say, no, this is connected to Russia, they're not going to say that without rock-solid confidence. I'm on the Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committee. We know this is the kind of thing that Russia has done in other nations right on the border in Eastern Europe, so it's not out of character. But the fact that they're doing it now and the fact that they're doing it during an election cycle marks the first time that I know in our history where there's been an organized effort by a foreign government to, at the minimum, delegitimize or destabilize an American election. And that's one of the reasons why I think we just have to turn out and send a strong message, not only that we're going to pick our own leaders, but to anybody else. You think you're going to mess with us? You're not going to mess with us.
Senator Kaine, very great to speak with you.
Yeah,
it's very good to see you again.
And
Tim Kaine, Saturday in Liberty City.
And still to come, the hard sell is on for the so-called solar amendment on your November ballot. And we will shed some light on what it says and what it means. Stay with us. The first of the 4 constitutional amendments on the general election ballot involves the future of Florida's solar power industry.
What the ballot question asks, at one point at least, is somewhat confusing. We reached out repeatedly this week to Yes on One, the group behind the amendment, Amendment 1, asking them to send someone to make an argument in favor of it. And guess what? They just couldn't come up with anyone.
But there is plenty of opposition, and Stephen Smith is among that opposition. He is the executive director of the environmental group Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. Here this morning from Pensacola for us. That was so nice of you. Thanks so much.
Thanks for the opportunity.
We're glad you're here. Stephen, we know who Florida utilities are, FP&L, Duke Energy, others. What is the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy?
The Southern Alliance for Clean Energy is a regional nonprofit organization that does work in Florida and other southeastern states, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina, and Tennessee, that works on energy policy for renewable energy. We work on climate policy. We're very concerned about climate change. The group that's actually running the No on One campaign is a political action committee in Florida called Floridians for Solar Choice. And so we are part of the Floridians for Solar Choice Coalition.
Good. Glad to have your bona fides on the table.
There is so much money involved in this amendment, basically on the companies who want people to vote yes. And we've been getting flyers, there are commercials out, and it sounds like such a sunny sell. Anyone for solar energy should vote for this. And in digging into what Amendment 1 says, that is completely not what it means, it looks like. Can you explain that?
Absolutely. This is a wolf in sheep's clothing if there ever was one, because basically what is happening is the utilities are spending this $21+ million to try to convince voters to support this solar amendment. But what this solar amendment will do will actually make it harder for customers to actually have customer-owned solar. And they do that in several different ways. The most important is they're going to try to add punitive charges or extra charges on customers who own solar, and they're going to justify it by saying they're not paying their fair share, which is absolutely false.
You mean if I were to put solar panels on my house, I would have a fee imposed on me? I'm provided by FP&L as it is. I mean, if this were to pass, they could actually tax somebody who has solar panels?
Well, first of all, there's several parts of their amendment. The first part, they say the right to own and lease solar. Everyone already has that right. So that's just eye candy to mislead people. Then they promise all these consumer protections, which are factually inaccurate. You will have no more consumer protection on November 7th than you will on November 9th. But the real key language is saying not to allow non-solar customers to subsidize solar customers. There is no factual basis for that. If that gets into the Constitution, it gives big utilities like FP&L the ability to put these punitive charges. Think about it. Just break it down to the most simple thing. FP&L doesn't want you generating your own power because then you're buying less from them. That's why they're spending $21 million to oppose this. They want to keep you from generating your own power, so you have to stay dependent on them as a monopoly.
Okay, so there's something called net metering, and people are so confused, and that's why it's so easy to sell people on it, because it's a confusing concept of net metering. My understanding of net metering is if you are a solar power person and you've put up the panels and you're doing it for yourself, you can kind of, during the nighttime when it's not sunny, stockpile energy to use. And then possibly sell it back to the grid for everyone else to use? So far, so good?
Well, what happens is when the sun is out, you're actually generating extra power, and the utility, you will push that back onto the grid, and the utility gets to sell it to your neighbor at the full price. But then at night, you actually draw power from the grid, and at the end of a monthly time period, you net out how much you put on the grid and how much you pulled off, and that's what net metering is.
Okay, so the power companies that take that power that people are producing and sell it back to others pay more for that than they do wholesale from other sources. And is that the point of these companies? Is that, well, if FP&L, for example, has to pay more from people who produce solar and then sell it to those who don't, then they're going to have to pass on those charges to the people who don't.
Well,
is that their argument?
That's what they're trying to argue. But the reality is most people who have solar on their home are just offsetting their use. So it's almost a one-to-one where they're selling the same amount as they consume. And therefore, there really is no extra power being generated because the people are really offsetting. It's very analogous to if you put an LED light in your house or an energy-efficient refrigerator where you're lowering your consumption. And when you're lowering your consumption, you're not buying as much from them. That's what they're trying to prevent.
Yeah.
Right, but that's the personal benefits of solar.
Right.
But here is what I think we really need to make clear,
Sure.
because on the ballot question, the first couple of points on the ballot question are benign because they do nothing.
don't do anything.
But the third part says that people should not be required to subsidize the cost of backup power. And I think that's going to scare a lot of people who don't have solar. How and why would they get to subsidize that?
They actually don't, and this is where the utilities are being very misleading. There's been a number of studies, the Brookings Institute, the most latest one, that actually looked at the net benefit of customers who have solar. Customers who put electricity out on the grid, they actually help the grid overall by providing voltage support, helping in all kinds of ways, taking pressure off substations. So people who generate solar power actually benefit the grid. The utilities don't want to recognize that because, see, they make money by building new power plants. So if you're generating your own power, they can't justify that next big plant.
I feel compelled to say once again that we have invited repeatedly this week the people from Yes on One, the people who support Amendment 1, and they have not sent anybody. I did go to their website this morning, Stephen, and part of what they say in their cell is Amendment 1, quote, protects Florida consumers from scams, ripoffs, and unfair subsidies. How would it, or is this just simply misleading?
It is misleading. This is one of the most ironic things. There is no more consumer protection in that ballot language than there is without the ballot language. And what is ironic is here FP&L is doing a 24% rate increase. They have basically been charging customers for nuclear power plants they'll never build. We need actually consumer protection from them to represent that the solar companies themselves are somehow taking advantage of people. There is no documentation of that at all. They're pointing to some very strange examples out in Arizona, and they're trying to bring them into Florida. The bottom line is this. This is driven by the utilities to protect their shareholders' profits because they don't want customers generating their own power. They've put $21 million into it. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing, and it really does not help solar. And if you go to voteNoOn1.org, you will see very clearly the information. Over 13 editorial boards across the state have editorialized against this. This is one of the biggest scams that have ever been perpetuated on Florida voters, and it really sets a very dangerous precedent where you let large corporations use misleading language to deceive voters for corporate profits.
Yeah. And another issue, of course, is putting anything like this in the state constitution. If it's really needed, pass it by statute. Don't put it into the Constitution. But that's almost a argument for another day. But Stephen Smith, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate it for coming down from
much.
Pensacola.
Yes.
And after a short break, it's time for the Powerhouse Roundtable. We have a good one for you today, so stick around. We'll be back.
As we do every week, we gather together some of the best and brightest in South Florida to analyze and opine on the week's top news stories.
It is the weekly roundtable, and this morning we have a great one for you today. Rosemary O'Hara is the editorial page editor of the Sun Sentinel. So glad to welcome her back to the big roundtable. Andrea Robinson is a veteran South Florida journalist, currently with the Miami Times and formerly with the Miami Herald. Mark Caputo is the Florida correspondent for Politico. He writes the Politico Florida Playbook, which shows up in emails across the state every morning. And welcome.
Good morning.
Welcome
Glad
back.
to have you
Good
come
morning.
in. Let's do a quick weigh-in from each of you on Amendment 1. Rosemary, the Sun Sentinel, editorialized against it, one of the 13 newspapers across the state. What do you find objectionable about it?
Well, for an industry that is changing as quickly as solar, the last place you want to enshrine what is today is in the Constitution. The second point I'd make is that this amendment came about because in response to another amendment that was trying to let people, like if you're Publix, sell your solar power to the dry cleaner next door. The big utility companies don't want that to happen. This would, while not in the language of the amendment itself, would set up the infrastructure that would allow and really require the legislature to prohibit that from happening. So it's not needed. I mean, it's our,
Well,
what
it's
we've got
needed,
is
it's needed if you have a power company and you want to protect your monopoly and you want to prevent people from having solar more easily.
Right.
If what's really a shame about Amendment 1 is that there's no organized opposition to kill it. Amendment 1 it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's a lie. People should vote no. I seldom, as a reporter, ever say that and take a side on an issue, but that's an issue where it's bad. I can understand if you're against medical marijuana. I can understand if you're for it. But if you're for this amendment, you're only for this because A, you don't know, or B, you're a power company who wants to keep making money off of people and have no competition.
Yeah, but one thing about that, because initially I thought it sounded good until some of my friends schooled me on the issue, because it also is the Florida NAACP is backing this.
Yeah, and why are they?
I don't think they understood. And since I made a point of reaching out to some of my friends to educate myself, I was told, Andrea, look, this is what this is about, and it is to help the FP and Ls. And so we have not, the Miami Times, we haven't weighed in on this yet, but I will make a point of letting people know this is not what it seems.
You know what was really interesting, and you brought up a very good point, in August, they brought down Reverend Al Sharpton to speak out against it. And when I asked him why, he, respectfully to the Reverend, could not articulate an answer that based on fact on why. And I'm still to this morning wondering why that community would be led into a position.
Well,
it's scary. It's really scary.
Political groups are political groups, and the NAACP does a lot of great work, but it's also a political group. And you found time and again, and there have been different examples of this, where if the power companies are giving you money, you're going to say what the power company wants you to say.
Is that what's happening?
Oh, I imagine definitely.
You
it's
think
happening.
so? I'm not sure if that's. I'm not sure that's the case. I really don't.
Their argument is that if solar is out there, it's going to disproportionately harm minorities because it's going to raise the price of power. I don't even want to say it on air because it's dishonest, but it's going to raise the price of power for minorities. And
so no one can clip this and use it in, I'm going to interrupt so no one can clip it and use it in any kind of ad.
It is a tortured argument that is designed to...
It may appear in an ad before November 8th. All right, hold on everybody. Let's move on to the presidential race, because that is the all-consuming topic of the day. And if we can, let's begin, before we get to Donald Trump, with Hillary Clinton and the WikiLeaks and the drip, drip, drip of these emails. The New York Times and other media are reporting today on what she said to Goldman Sachs in 2013. Mark, she got $675,000, and as you would expect, she had some rather kind things to say to Lloyd Blankfein and the other people. But there really, from what I read, there wasn't anything terribly damaging in her remarks. I don't know why she just didn't release them.
Well, welcome to Clinton world. It's just, why did she have a private email server? No one really knows. She basically believes the public doesn't have a right to know, and there are times where she has decided the public doesn't have that right. And here was another example. But what's interesting here is this is wiki karma for Hillary Clinton, right? Because she's going to hide this stuff, and then all of a sudden these emails get hacked, and it gets out there anyway at the last possible minute. But I don't think to your point, I don't think it's much of a smoking gun. It's a smoking gun to the degree that someone took bullets out of a gun and threw it in a barbecue. But I don't really see anything fatal here for Hillary Clinton.
Well, there are letters and emails, private emails again, and still, even since the DNC issue, that have some of her staffers saying derogatory things, purportedly making fun of Catholics, but none of this got great play this week because of Donald Trump.
Donald Trump has sucked the oxygen out of everything this campaign cycle, including these WikiLeaks. It was just, I thought, funny, maybe karma to me, that this last leak came the same time as the videotape from 2005. But to the point about the WikiLeaks, I spent a couple of hours going through those just because I kept hearing media talking about this, oh my God, Hillary Clinton, there's something wrong. And I read and I thought, okay, what's the big deal? There's no there.
Well, for us,
for us.
For us at Politico, like we do inside baseball. This is fun inside baseball. How this stuff works. Okay. Yes, there were derogatory comments made about the Catholic Church.
But is it of importance, great importance to an everyday average person?
Okay, so as a devil's advocate here, is what Donald Trump did 15 years ago of importance to the everyday person in this election?
When you're talking about assaulting, touching someone against their will, yes, it is.
Yes, that he is denying.
And there's also the issue.
It's on tape. How? Okay, my lying eyes or what? I see. Okay, yeah.
The women who came forward this week, that adds fuel to that fire. And again, instead of being the kinder and gentler Donald Trump, he actually doubled down Rosemary by saying things like, well, look at her. I mean, cringe-worthy responses.
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't have hit on her, essentially, because she wasn't good looking.
I don't think hit on is the right verb, by the way.
Right.
Well,
I think predator is a good way to describe how he describes himself. You know, I think in the week that we have heard about the WikiLeaks, we have heard about the emails, we've heard about Donald Trump, and we've also heard this growing chorus that the media is to blame for not
he's led the chorus.
Yes. And so people seem to think that the media has not covered the emails, or has not covered the Clinton Foundation, or has not covered who did she meet with as Secretary of State. I thought the New York Times lawyer who punched back and said, you know what, we didn't create your reputation, you have created your reputation.
Yeah. On Thursday, I was one of many reporters. I don't know if you were in West Palm Beach, but I was at the Donald Trump rally, and after the rally, where he was angry and defiant, said, no, I never did this, and it's going to be the end of civilization as we know it. If I'm not elected, I went out into the crowd and spoke to about a dozen people and asked them, well, what about these accusations? And I want to play just a couple of what these people had to say. Let's roll that tape.
You really believe someone was groped in first class with no one to see it, and that it comes out 25 years later? It's ridiculous.
What about these stories that have been published over the last day alleging that he had groped women inappropriately, kissed them?
It's ridiculous. There's no evidence of it. I don't believe it.
All right, so the New York Times, the Washington Post.
They have no credibility with anybody in this room.
Now, boy, there is a big statement. The New York Times, the Washington Post, and essentially all of us in the media have no credibility in that room.
But of course, this is a man who said he could kill someone and would still...
His followers would still get him off the hook.
Vote for him.
He's right.
It's the level of crazy. There's no discounting it.
Yeah. Well, we have earned, Rosemary, I think, some of the distrust by things that we, generally speaking, have said and done, or the way we comport ourselves. But I got to say, the level of hatred for the media in that room, of course, Donald Trump ginned it up. But at one point, he pointed to the media riser. Everybody, turned around and looked at the media, shook their fists, and booed. It's not that my feelings weren't hurt. I mean, I get paid a nice salary to be there. But I mean,
and yet he is where he is in part because of the media. We gave him so much free media because he got ratings. And let's just put a little bit of a define around what we mean by media. And we're talking the cable news channels. I mean, they gave an hour, he was on, they gave him a free hour. Right. So for him to now complain that the media is unfair.
CNN's news chief, the head of CNN, essentially apologized for the amount of attention they gave to Donald Trump during the primary. So if he wants to attack the media, so to speak,
and ironically, on Thursday, he denounced the Clinton News Network, the CNN.
Yeah. All right.
Well, luckily, irony's not dead.
Yeah. We take a quick break. You know, the debate is Wednesday. When we come back, let's talk about what Wednesday will hold. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Live in our studio this morning, we are doing the roundtable. And Mark Caputo, on Monday night, you are going to be, tomorrow night, you're going to be in Orlando. You are going to be one of the questioners for the first Marco Rubio, Tim Murphy debate.
Oh, I'm sorry, Patrick Murphy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Tim's brother.
Yeah, Tim's brother. Patrick Murphy. What do you expect?
That's a great question. It's going to be live TV, so we're going to find out. What we're going to try to do is make sure that the Senate debate is a debate about the issues that are important in Florida, in the Senate. It's not just going to be a referendum on Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, albeit they are going to come up. So we'd like to see how these candidates kind of interact with each other. As you know, Patrick Murphy declined to be in 6 debates with Marco Rubio at Marco Rubio's challenge. So this is going to be a really great chance for Floridians to weigh the candidates, see how they interact and what they believe and think.
Rosemary, the Sun Sentinel made an endorsement in this race.
Right.
Patrick Murphy today. I believe it came out today.
We did, yes.
You know what was interesting about in my view, what was interesting is there was nothing in the editorial about Patrick Murphy's embellishments of his background.
Yeah.
Did that not play into the decision at all?
You know, we dealt with that in the primary, and good point. But it was more a case, rather than throw in all our support behind Murphy because we know him to be the best candidate, it was really more that we know that Rubio does not really want to serve. He didn't like being in the Senate. He's using it as a platform from which he can run for president again. He, you know, he doesn't stand up to Donald Trump. He says he would stand up to Hillary Clinton, but would he stand up to Donald Trump? He hasn't. If he thinks on the nuclear codes the guy's dangerous, why not? To your point on the debate, I expect that Marco Rubio will be smooth and polished and be the winner. And part of it is because Murphy failed to debate in the primary. I don't think he's a natural at it. And so I suspect the debates will give Rubio more a bounce. And
yeah, Andrea, I mean, I think Rubio clearly has the edge going into this debate. I mean, think about all those presidential primary debates, except for the end where he repeated himself with a canned line.
I agree with you on that. I think that this hopefully is an opportunity for Patrick Murphy to show who he is and what he can bring to the table, since he did not debate his challengers in the Democratic primary. A lot of people don't know who he is. I mean, he's this enigma to people, and having been around campaigning all year statewide, supposedly, I know black voters don't know him, and he needs people to come out to support him. So maybe this is the opportunity, although with all the talk about Trump, I fear that this debate is going to get lost in the sauce.
Well, Mark, how important is name recognition statewide?
Huge.
Well, when you have candidates that are very clear choices policy-wise.
You mean candidates as in Patrick Murphy and Marco Rubio?
And Marco Rubio, yeah.
Well, if you don't know who Patrick Murphy is, and he's brand X, across the state, this is not one state. This is 10 states, basically. That's 10 media markets. It costs about $2 million a week to have advertising to get known. A University of North Florida poll showed that Patrick Murphy was unknown to 36% of the likely voters. And if you add on top of that, the DC Democrats have left him hanging. They pulled $12 million of $20 million in promised ad spending. That's at least 4 to 6 weeks of saturation advertising.
Why?
People don't know who he is. Well, they decided to spend elsewhere.
They think the money is going to be better spent in other races.
We're a big, expensive state.
But the thing is that you consider the money that was spent in the primaries, on radio for Patrick Murphy. We were here bombarded with radio ads 10, 15 times a day from Barack Obama supporting Patrick Murphy. Now you don't hear that. I thought it was ludicrous.
It's bizarre. It's almost like Washington, D.C. wanted to make sure to defeat Alan Grayson as the Democratic
Yes.
candidate for
And
Senate, and now they're happy to allow Marco Rubio to resuscitate his political career. It's got Florida Democrats apoplectic.
Well, so is there no thought that a Florida Democrat who walks into the voting booth and does not know who Murphy is, but does not want to vote for a Republican senator, wouldn't vote for the Democrat?
That's great, but there's only 38% of the state's registered voters are registered Democrats. 36% are Republicans. The remainder are NPA independents, and independents generally have a lower amount of interest in political campaigns and have less knowledge. And if Marco Rubio's out there saying, I'm going to be a check on Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and hey, remember me, I'm the guy who made fun of Donald Trump's hands and whatnot, they might just throw their lot in with him. And in fact, according to the polls, they are.
But what you also have to consider is the number of judicial candidates or judicial nominees who have been left hanging. The federal courts, what about them? The Supreme Court, they've just been left hanging. And Marco Rubio has gone along with Mitch McConnell and has decided to hold up all of those nominations.
Yeah.
This
Which is
isn't, I
ludicrous.
would say it's not a vote for Patrick Murphy. I think this race is a referendum on Marco Rubio, and that Democrats who don't know who Patrick Murphy is will vote for him because they believe the Senate would be better in Democratic control. To Andrea's point that, you know, we still don't have a Supreme Court justice because of the yin and yang between the, you know, the White House. And so I think it's a referendum on Rubio.
And also, as you point out, as your page points out in the editorial today, if it can be disseminated and people know that on LGBT gay issues, lesbian, gay, transgender issues, you know, there is no love for that. I mean, Rubio is very he's not anti-gay, but anti-legislation. And also on choice. He
was against gay marriage. He's against women's right to choice, even if she is rape or incest. He's against any kind of restrictions on assault-style weapons. Yeah. And so that he showed up at Pulse, at the shooting at Pulse at the nightclub there, and said, oh, now I'm motivated to run for the Senate. Well, he didn't support gay rights, and he doesn't support doing something about gun, you know, and so what was it in that made him suddenly?
The terror issue, I think, is what the Pulse
that was one of the that was one of the things he said. And also, you know, this question's been asked of Rubio, and he has said, well, you know, whether they're gay or not, these are still Floridians, and they were still murdered. It's not like he's not pro-murder.
No.
You know?
Well, he should have stayed home.
So before we
hard as
go,
nails.
can we just talk about the wrestling smackdown that we're expecting on Wednesday night? I mean, after last Sunday's presidential debate, wow, what's the headline for Wednesday? What do we expect?
Who knows? This is, I said the other day, this is reality TV where we've lost reality. I have no idea.
We have seen since the latest revelations, these women coming forward, we have seen Donald Trump unleashed, and I on Wednesday expect to see more Donald Trump unleashed. I mean, just simply free to say whatever he wants to say. I think that he thinks he's got nothing left to lose.
Right, and it's unfortunate that the campaign right now is all theatrics. We're not digging into Social Security, we're not digging into gun control, we're not digging into the federal debt. It is about, you know, what is he going to say and how will he look at her? And, you know, I mean, I also believe, though, that these women who are coming forward, I know his supporters don't believe them, but I don't understand why a woman would take the abuse that you get if you come forward and say, somebody did something to me and I want you to know. So I believe them.
It's going to be the final word, and a good one. Rosemary, Andrea, Mark, great to have you come in.
Thank you, guys.
As always.
We will see you again soon.
And coming up, we're going to take a closer look at one of the most heated races in Florida. We've talked about it a bit, the race between Marco Rubio and Patrick Murphy and the candidates themselves. Florida Senator Marco Rubio, he was in Tampa for a GOP dinner this weekend, and he spoke for half an hour there without ever mentioning the party's presidential nominee.
Senator Rubio is distancing himself from Donald Trump in the run-up for this tight race with Democratic opponent Patrick Murphy. Earlier this week, I profiled the two candidates ahead of their big debate tomorrow night.
Thanks to Congressman Patrick Murphy, who I hope is the next senator from Florida.
A big shout out yesterday from Hillary Clinton for Congressman Patrick Murphy, who wants to move up to the Senate.
And Senator Marco Rubio has the worst voting record of any senator from Florida in almost 50 years.
Madam President,
Rubio's voting record was awful when he was running for president, and he openly expressed frustration with the Senate.
That's one of the frustrating things about this place, is the political aspect, the political theater aspect of a lot of these debates.
The reason why it's called the victory office is because
Rubio has found a second wind as he seeks a second term, and voters like what they see. Rubio has consistently led in the polls. The latest one has it Rubio 48, Murphy 46. The latest Wall Street Journal poll shows you within striking distance, but you still need to close that gap. Can you do that?
Absolutely. We are confident that with our team, with my message, continue to campaign around the state, that not only are we going to win, we're going to win convincingly. All right, good to see you.
Murphy's chances depend to a large degree on how Hillary Clinton fares in Florida. She wins, his chances improve. Rubio's chances depend on voters splitting their ticket, maybe voting for Clinton, but also for him.
I am a Democrat, but I'm for Marco Rubio.
And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Rubio blasted Trump for his lewd comments about women, but didn't renounce his support.
When Donald Trump goes low, Marco Rubio is right there with him.
I have disagreements with Donald on more issues than I normally would with a Republican nominee. But by the same token, I disagree with Hillary Clinton on virtually every issue.
And again, Rubio and Murphy are going to meet for their first debate tomorrow night, and you can see it right here on Local 10.
And next, we'll talk about pregnant pigs and what they have to do with selling solar power and buying marijuana. Stay with us.
All right, South Florida, good afternoon. A live view at a Mount Sinai Medical Center tower cam. There's some sunshine breaking through the cloud cover, but still dealing with scattered showers, mainly now over parts of Miami-Dade. Now, this batch of rainfall, it's heavy, but now pushing away into the Everglades. We also have two areas of heavy rainfall that will enter the Upper Keys in the next few minutes. Some more rain is still lingering to the south of the Middle Keys. It looks like that's staying south in the meantime, but we do expect another round of rainfall as persistent onshore flow continues on through the rest of this week, and then into late this week. Next weekend, we'll be talking about a cold front that will finally bring us back the dry weather. Keep the rain gear handy all week long. Glenna.
Oh, that is such good news. Jen, thanks. We've talked a lot about the questions on the ballot asking you to amend the state constitution. We have gotten a lot of requests here to explain what on earth those questions mean. And we did some of that today, and we plan to do more on Local 10 over the next week. In those conversations with you, we've heard a decided tone of distrust and even disgust. So many believe that as voters, they're being misled or sold a bill of goods. And in some cases, they'd be right. Despite the gravity of the state constitution, this document that frames the foundation, the rights, the responsibilities of Florida's government, it's actually stocked with rules and issues added in because some group, citizen, or corporation couldn't get lawmakers to act through the legislative process, even though the state statutes might actually be where those particular issues belong. And so they gathered enough petitions and crafted that 75-word question to put on the ballot, and then set about figuring a way to sell it to at least 60% of the voters. Well, that process is important. That's what gives citizens a voice when lawmakers won't or don't act. But it's also the process that allows things like rules for pregnant pigs into Florida's state constitution. On this ballot, groups are asking you to decide whether to help preserve electric companies' monopoly over your solar power. We've talked about that. And they're asking whether to allow marijuana as a remedy for chronic pain. Consider not only what you think about those issues, but whether that document that frames the big principles of state government is the appropriate place to put those things. What do you think? We invite you to weigh in on any topic you like.
And there are many ways to reach out to us: email, Facebook, Twitter. Talk to us. We'll be glad to talk back to you. And remember, as always, stay informed Get involved. Have a great Sunday.
You were trying to think of another way to do that, weren't you? There must be.
Any way works.
Any way works.